Nightmares Never End. Chapter 1. Pale is the prison they doomed me to dwell. Chapter content warning. Character death. Graphic descriptions of a half-eaten body. Vomiting. Cannibalism. Mickey had been to Wasteland 2 times. Those 2 times were to fix the thinner disaster he had indirectly caused. The other time, to stop the Mad Doctor. However, one part, or more specifically, Toon, was overlooked on his adventures. It was a gremlin, Gremlin Prescott. Mickey had originally been friends with the purple-clad gremlin, but during his second visit to Wasteland, Prescott had changed. Drastically. His whole demeanor felt off. He should have noticed something was wrong the moment he allowed Prescott to go have that chat with Telephone. He just never expected the young inventor to turn his back on everyone as fast as he did. Of course, when he attacked them with that giant mech, they stopped him. Mostly uninjured. He got a good hit on Gus and Oswald. He broke Gus's legs and cracked one of Oswald's ribs. Mickey himself came out relatively unharmed, if you ignore his ripped ear. After they had been patched up, Oswald with a bandage on his chest for his ribs, and, of course, Gus had a bandaged up leg, they visited Prescott in his jail cell. Time was not on their side, though, as they had to go deal with the main issue at hand. The Mad Doctor trying to steal the brush from Mickey again. After all was said and done, they had befriended the Mad Doctor, the Guardians had turned him into a Toon again, and all was well. At least, that's what Mickey thought about 3 days ago. He investigated the jail cell, along with Gus and Oswald. As to not stir up a panic, they hadn't informed anyone of Prescott or the Pete brothers' disappearances. Naturally, their first place of suspicion on these disappearances would be the only Pete who hadn't disappeared, Pete Tronic, who adamantly denied having anything to do with these disappearances. "If you find the others, tell them that when I see them again, they better run if they know what's good for them," the cyborg grunted at the heroes. Mickey furrowed his brow, and Oswald rolled his eyes. The 2 brothers knew very well that the Petes did genuinely care for each other, but they just refused to admit it. Nevertheless, Mickey thanked Pete Tronic for being willing to speak to them at least, and they left. Mickey tried his hardest to think of leads. Honestly, he wouldn't be surprised if the Petes kidnapped Prescott. He didn't hold them to very high standards anyway. You know, maybe we should ask around town? Maybe Toons on Mean Street have some gossip that could help us, well, find our guys? Oswald offered Mickey, leaning into the mouse's view while they walked back to the projector of Blot Alley. Mickey had his hand on his chin, thinking. Oswald did raise a good point. The residents on Mean Street were quite fond of spreading gossip amongst themselves. Gus followed behind the mouse and Lucky Rabbit quietly. He was busy thinking. He thought back to Prescott's words during the fight. He thought back and all he could think was, why? Why did Prescott try to kill them? Why was Prescott so aggressive? To the other 2, they just assumed it was his pent-up anger. Gus, on the other hand, he knew something was up. Gus noticed how Prescott's emotions, the way he moved his mech, everything seemed so amped up. Like he was trying to hide something. Or trying to ignore something. Then again, if something was really off, he would have admitted it while he was hypnotized, wouldn't he? Maybe. Even that was taken with a mountain of salt, though, since he was still manipulated by the Mad Doctor. The trio got back to Mean Street. Normally, Gus would have teleported to meet them there, but due to his broken leg, he was immobilized from teleporting. Upon reaching Mean Street, they noticed Jack Kelly, the news reporter, was out on his street corner. He was calling out his usual stories. Normally the trio wouldn't care much. However, lately normality wasn't the norm, and what he was saying caused them to freeze up. First it was his usual report, then missing tunes in Ventureland. Finally, Prescott and the Pete brothers' disappearances. Oswald balled his fists in anger. How did he find out? Who told him? He furrowed his brow and stormed over to Jack, despite Mickey and Gus's pleas for him not to do what he was about to do. "Hey, Kelly!" Oswald shouted. Mickey slapped a hand over his mouth, and Gus facepalmed. Jack looked at Oswald in shock. "How did you find out about those disappearances?" Oswald pointed at Jack Kelly accusingly, causing the horse to put its hands in front of him defensively. "Hey, don't shoot the messenger! I'm just an innocent bystander." Oswald's anger only boiled further, welling up inside the rabbit. He prepared to sucker punch the tune before abruptly being tugged away by Mickey and Gus. "Come on! You guys aren't the least bit annoyed by this?" Oswald broke out of Mickey and Gus's grasps as he whipped around to stare at the two. "Of course we are, Oswald, but currently we have bigger things to worry about," Gus explained, as Mickey's brows knitted. "Well, he said there were missing tunes in Ventureland. That could be a lead, right?" Mickey said with a small nod. Oswald looking at him and pointing to Jack Kelly, who was currently in the process of slinking away. "And that doesn't count?" Oswald said angrily, Gus looking between the two. "Can you two quit it? You're arguing like school children. The more time we waste like this, who knows what could be happening to those tunes?" Gus was starting to get annoyed himself. Mickey and Oswald both looked at Gus. Oswald sighed. "I suppose you're right. But after we investigate, I have some questions for that news reporter," he said, gritting his teeth. With this minor inconvenience out of the way, the trio were off to Ventureland. Upon arrival, it was immediately apparent something was wrong with the lack of tunes. Daisy and Donald were snooping around. The three approached the animatronics. "Hey, Daisy, what's going on?" The bot quickly turned to face Mickey. "Oh, Mickey, it's horrible. Almost all the tunes around here have gone missing, and the last remaining few have said they heard screaming in the middle of the night," Daisy groused, glitching heavily from how upset she was. "We're looking for clues," Donald added. Gus furrowed his brow at this. Missing tunes? Screaming at night? This can't mean anything good. Tiki Sam said it's probably the pirates scaring them away. Or kidnapping tunes. Me personally, I believe something more sinister is going down. Of course, nobody believes me. If Daisy had eyes, she'd roll them. Oswald frowned at this information. "Is Tiki Sam still around here?" Oswald asked the two ducks. "Of course he is. He never leaves his post. It means a lot to him after all," Daisy chuckled. Oswald nodded, walking over to Tiki Sam's shop while Mickey and Gus kept questioning Daisy about what's happening in Ventureland. Not long after Oswald entered, not even a few seconds, he ran out and vomited. Mickey quickly ran over to Oswald, followed by Gus. "Oswald, what happened?" Mickey quickly asked the rabbit. Oh, doll. Mick, he's... Oswald threw up once more. Gus recoiled in slight disgust as Mickey furrowed his brow. He slowly approached Tiki Sam's shop, gently creaking the door open. "Hello? Tiki Sam..." Before Mickey could finish his sentence, he was cut off. "Oh, Oh, my doll. Mickey's eyes widened in horror. Oh, my doll. There was inky blood, soaking and seeping into every crevice in the room. On the walls, the floor, everywhere. It smeared the counter, a dark and morbid sight that would make even the most desensitized of toons lose their appetite. It made the room feel damp. The metallic smell of blood and the disgusting stench of rotting flesh hit his nose, causing him to falter as these senses hit him all at once. He suddenly became hyper-aware of how he felt. Like bugs crawling under his skin, spiders, prickly and itchy. Mickey felt himself begin to vomit. What could have caused this? Who or what did this? Was it a beetleworks? Oh, doll, he was gonna be sick. Mickey's head spun. He threw a hand over his mouth, and he ran out. Feeling bile begin to boil and rise as he moved, feet hitting the ground in quiet thumps, matching his heartbeat. He ended up vomiting his guts before he could even get halfway. Gus quickly approached Mickey. "Mickey, what's going on?" Gus said, with a concerned tone. The mouse slowly turned to face the gremlin, his eyes wide with shock and fear. "Gus, Tiki Sam, he's... oh, doll." Mickey covered his mouth once again, before vomiting. Gus turned to go see for himself, being stopped when a hand on his shoulder forced him to stand still. "Gus, you don't want to see. Trust me." Mickey wiped the vomit from his mouth, standing up again. Gus furrowed his brow. What does Mickey mean? If both him and Oswald threw up after visiting Tiki Sam, Gus wanted to know what caused such a reaction. "Can you at least try and describe what happened in there?" the green gremlin queried, to which the mouse simply stared blankly for a second before responding. There was ink everywhere. Oh, Gus, it was on the floor, the walls, the counter. It was everywhere. The rodent's words caused Gus's eyes to widen. What? Ink everywhere? So, Tiki Sam's... Gus started, his words trailing as the realization hit him. Those missing toons weren't missing. They were murdered. Gus slowly turned to look over at Daisy and Donald. Were they the ones who did this? Did they kill those toons? Tiki Sam? Gus's thoughts were swirling. Would Daisy and Donald really hurt others, though? They were made to be friendly, but then again, they were the only ones untouched by whatever was causing these disappearances. Gus was about to approach them, when all of a sudden, an anvil sketch was cast above Donald and dropped onto him. Daisy shrieked in horror. Donald! She was trying to move the anvil, as animatronic bits scattered across the ground. Gus looked over at Oswald, who watched in horror with wide eyes. Oswald ran over to try and move the anvil, followed by Mickey, who thinned it away, giving the three a good view of what remained of Donald. Gus finally made his way over, albeit slowly, no thanks to his injury. All four of them were now looking. All that remained was oil splattered and a flattened animatronic head. Gus rubbed Daisy's back reassuringly as she sobbed. Or at least, tried to sob. That would be difficult, given the fact that she's an animatronic. Now left the question of who cast the sketch. there were only so few people around, and they were all hiding in their homes. So, it was only really out of Oswald, Gus, Mickey, or Daisy herself. Gus placed a hand on his chin, thinking. That was until he swore he saw something purple in the bushes. He quickly whipped his head towards it, barely catching a glimpse before it vanished into the scrub of Ventureland. Was it a gremlin? That wouldn't be possible. Nobody is stationed in Ventureland. So, what was it? Gus's thoughts were interrupted by Mickey tapping his shoulder. Gus, we have to evacuate the other residents. It's not safe for them here. Mickey spoke solemnly. Gus simply nodded as a response. The three split up to knock on other houses, warning them to evacuate. By the time they were done, basically everyone was gone. Mickey sighed, turning to Oswald and Gus. Now that everyone is gone, we should search the area, he said, gripping his brush. Oswald and Gus nodded in agreement. Mickey searched in and around Daisy's house. Oswald searched the storeroom of Tiki Sam's shop. And Gus went to check out whatever that purple thing he saw was. He turned the corner and heard something sickening. A kind of squelching noise, like crunching. The kind you'd hear when feeding a dog raw chicken wings with bones inside. Whatever was causing this noise was eating. And whatever it was eating was raw and fleshy. Gus's stomach churned as he drew closer, limping as he did. Oh, doll, what was he about to find? The closer he got, the more he heard. He could make out what also sounded like vomiting. Suddenly, a loud crunch caused him to blanch, like the creature eating had just crunched a bone. It was loud enough that Mickey and Oswald heard it for sure. Gus crouched behind a bush, as he got as close to the sound as he could, without being spotted. Peeking from behind the bush, he couldn't make out much, but he noticed the flaps of a pilot helmet, akin to that of a gremlin. It was purple. One other detail he took in was a tail. A gremlin tail. What? Did a gremlin kill Tiki Sam? He looked down and saw an eerily familiar shade of dark purple sludge on the ground. The blot. Whatever the creature was had something to do with the blot. He was so sure of it. Looking back up, he saw this thing's head flick back, an arm going down its throat whole. What the hell? Gus quickly ducked back behind the bush as he heard the creature's neck snap back, presumably to see if he was there. He held his breath, hearing it slowly approach when Mickey and Oswald showed up. Gus looked back, and the thing was gone. He stood up, going over to see what was being eaten. The sight made him vomit on the spot. Even his time in war couldn't have prepared him for this. Gus clenched his stomach and fell to his knees, vomiting. The sight before him, it was Tiki Sam's remains. His face had been eaten off. You could see the bone, stained with blood and ink, smeared and painted morbidly. His left arm was completely gone, blood seeping and oozing out, like slime at the bottom of a garbage can. He had big chunks eaten out of his legs, blood dripping and seeping into the fleshy mass. His torso. Oh God, his torso. He had been chewed open, blot ink filling what was once his guts, liver, kidneys. Oh, his kidneys. They were eaten away. There was nothing left of them. He had adorned bite marks and rips all over his guts, like they had been pulled out and elongated. His liver was ripped in half. Bit by bit, Gus saw the bloody, gory aftermath. Oh, Dahl, his ribs had been broken off, torn and licked clean of any remains. His entire torso filled to the brim with blot's ink. Gus shook. Oh, Dahl. Oh, my Dahl. His eyes welled with tears. Gus's ears perked when he heard a gremlin teleport, whipping his head towards the sound. What? His thoughts were quickly interrupted when the corpse began to reanimate itself. The body leaked and oozed with fluids of decay and death. The body stood up shakily, ink and blood flowing from its exposed insides. Wait. He didn't pay much mind before. He was too traumatized from the sight to notice, but... blood? Toons don't bleed blood. They bleed ink. What is this? Whatever was happening before the trio's very eyes was overriding Gus's thoughts as he began running, more like limping. Oswald, bless his soul, picked Gus up and carried him. The corpse zombie puppet thing was hobbling after them. Finally, Mickey had the bright idea to thin it. The corpse slowly melted away. Oh, Dahl. The sight made Oswald vomit again. He couldn't help it. Gus felt equally disgusted. Coming down off his adrenaline, he felt dizzy. The world spun around him. He couldn't think straight. Stop thinking. Stop it. It hurt. It hurt to think. His stomach, his leg, his head, everything hurt. And then it all went black. When Gus woke up, he was in his house, finding Gremlin Hyperion sitting next to the bed he laid on. Hyperion? Gus weakly said, a hand coming up to rub his head. Oh, thank Dahl you're all right, the blue-clad gremlin said in relief, helping Gus sit up. You took a nasty fall, Gus, he said, worry etched on his face. What happened? The older gremlin queried the other. Well, Mickey and Oswald didn't say much. All they said was that you passed out while they were investigating. They had to leave, though. Apparently something urgent. Hyperion shrugged, blissfully unaware to the horror Gus had to bear witness to. How long was I out for? The red-fitted gremlin asked, furrowing his brow. About 2 hours, Hyperion responded, looking at the clock on the wall. Everyone was super worried about you when they brought you in, you know. He continued, his tone low with worry. The words hung between the two in the stale air, tensions high. Gus sat in silence for a moment. He had just noticed that his helmet was sitting on the bedside table beside him and not on his head. Finally, after what felt like too long, he let out a sigh before speaking. I'm worried, Hyperion. What if something bad happened to Prescott? Hyperion gave a tired smile in turn. Come on, Gus. You know how Prescott is. He probably just went into hiding. He made an attempt at reassuring the other, who simply hummed in displeased as a response. He looked out the window. It seemed like the sun was setting. Gus tried to get up, hissing out of pain when his leg hit the floor, flinching at the sting. He had to find Mickey and Oswald. Gus, slow down, you'll hurt yourself! Hyperion rushed over to Gus to help him. Hyperion, where's Mickey and Oswald? Did they tell you where they went? To Gus's disappointment, Hyperion shook his head. The green gremlin looked out at the window again with a furrowed brow. Something was wrong. Very wrong. His line of thought was ripped away, however, when a shriek was heard outside. Hey guys, Blue here. So, I'm glad you watched to the end, or not watched, more like listened to the end of this, but if you're too lazy to read the, story, this is the podcast of it. Of course, this is gonna take a while to, produce. But, if you wanna read ahead, the chapter, or not chapter, but, fanfic will be linked in the description, as well as a playlist of the audio, songs, used in the video. So, hope you enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next update, or video, whatever I post. Bye bye!